Oh, she's here. So we're going to get into it now. So I want to talk a little bit about life before acting. So this bit's a little bit cringe, but I'll start off, try and make you laugh. So you were West LA County, born and raised in Santa Monica's where you spent most of your days.
Yeah, that part's about right.
Dropped, cool points just dropped by about
no. I like
now.
That. No.
So what was it? I mean, I understand your upbringing was a far cry from the world of Hilary Banks. It was much more humble than that. Can you tell us a little bit about, what life was like when
Growing up for me? I grew up in Santa Monica, California, and I was an only child. My mother was Black, African American. She grew up in the South. And my dad is white, and he's from Butte, Montana. I mean, it couldn't be from further worlds apart.
Yeah.
They were the opposite of each other in so many ways. But my mother was very attentive and to me and to everything with me growing up. Whether I was in lots of dance recitals. I was very involved in dance, and she was sewing my costumes and attending everything. My dad was in his own world. That's how he's always been. So he was off in his own world. And I guess he saw me once in a dance recital, because to this day, he talks about what a great dancer I am, because he saw me in the 3rd grade in something. So he always thinks I'm this great dancer. But then when I started being interested in acting, which was very early, my mother was always she wasn't a showbiz mom. She was encouraging of me being interested in something, but not pushing me. And then when I started looking into acting workshops and such, when I got older, she was supportive. She took me to them. She paid for them. Yeah. And we didn't grow up like you were saying. I mean, it was nothing like living in Bel-Air. We lived, a lot of, when my mom and dad split up, my mom and I were in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I slept on the couch, and that was just the arrangement.
Yeah, I read that your mum worked as a sheriff. Apparently she modeled swimsuits, and she also worked as a librarian too. So she did a bit of everything.
She did a bit of everything. It's so funny to go through photo albums of hers, because you see her in the training academy, and they're like, she's flipping other women and she's wearing these uniforms, and then you see her in swimsuit modeling with these really cheesy backgrounds. And then of course she became a librarian. When she went back to school, she went to UCLA and USC. She went to get her master's in library science, and when I was a kid. And she became a librarian, and she was a librarian for the rest of her life until she retired.
Yeah, it's all about your mum a bit, because from what I've read, I mean, she didn't give interviews or anything like that, but she seemed like a pretty amazing woman, and you see pictures of her, and she seemed pretty, I know her personality came through on the pictures. Like there was this photograph of you, I think you might have been by a swimming pool, and little baby Lana, and you were pointing towards the camera, and your mum was like,
yes, she's in front of me right now. I've got these pictures, and she's like, this is her. This is totally mom. Like, I hope it's not blown out too much.
I can see your mom.
Yeah, and she's just like beaming in these pictures, and she's just always beaming, big smile, beaming mom. Yeah, she was the best.
I have a quote about your mum from somebody called, you may know him, Dale Parsons.
Oh yeah, well, it's my half brother.
Oh, your half brother, right?
I wouldn't meet until I was an adult, but yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So he said of your mother, Louise was a wonderful woman of faith, who loved her Lord. She was always more concerned about those she loved more than herself. You could sense the love and pride she felt in her beloved daughter Karyn and her husband Ken by the sound of her voice when she spoke about them. She was always asking how everyone else was doing, and occasionally you could squeeze a bit out of about herself.
Yeah,
she was very intelligent and well-read, but always respected others' views and opinions despite being different from hers. How beautiful is that? I mean, does that obviously sounds like the mum that you know. I mean, how much of that shaped who you
It's so funny reading that. It's funny to I mean, hearing you read that, it's interesting because it's completely true. And it definitely had a profound effect on me. Like I said, she and my father could not have been more different. And he was, everyone used to tease that when my mother passed and she went up into heaven, she'd have the largest, fluffiest chair of everyone. Like she was going to have the big fluffy one because she was such a saint, and she was so she really tolerated. He's a difficult guy, my dad, and she was really lovely with him and understanding all the time. I mean, frustrating sometimes because you feel like she was putting him up in front of her. She tried not to, but I think even with other people, aside from him, because he's an extreme, but just with people in general, she was interested in the person first, who you were, and your soul than all the other little, earthly things that you believed
like
in.
None of that,
No, she was more interested in you, like the real you. And I think she brought that out of a lot of people too, because she was so warm and lovely. I mean, everyone always, oh, she's so lovely, she's so lovely. And she really was. She was just, and it was natural for her. It wasn't to put on. It really was who she was. And I think she made people feel at ease to share. I found that out a lot toward the end of her life, when I would speak with people, when I started finding friends of hers that I didn't really know. She made people feel so comfortable to just, when they were with her, that a lot of things came out of them, and they loved just being in her presence. And I'm so, I'm her daughter, so I'm kind of biased. I'm always like, she's the best, period. But that's me. And then it's so nice to hear and see other people saying it. And I think something that's always meant a lot to me as well is not being harsh, not being so judgmental of people.
Right.
That have different, especially people who have different opinions of you than you. Just, I would rather hear why. I would rather lean in toward you than immediately pull back. And I think that comes from my mother. I don't know that I'm not, I'm not going to have the big fluffy chair that she does. I'm not this saintly like her, but it is important. And it's part of why I love writing and storytelling, is I like people and diving deeper into the complications of people and why people make the decisions that they make and do the things that they do, behave the ways that they do, instead of just saying, because I always think of us all as little toddlers. Like when you see grownups, whether they're yelling at each other through their cars or on the street, whatever's happening, I try to picture them when they were all toddlers, when they were all babies, as if they were running around. And, that's who we are. We're good people.
That's how we start. That's how
it is. And then things happen and people think, and it affects people in different ways.
Sure.
And sure, people come out with some certain personality traits they just kind of show up with. I've learned from having children and watching that. But yeah, I think that's something I probably got, the importance of that, of caring about individuals. I think I probably got from my mom.
You say your dad was a little bit doing his own sort of thing. Was he
My dad
a bit reserved, or just a bit more quiet than your mom?
It's funny. I wonder if now we talk about people being on the spectrum, and we didn't used to talk about things like that or label and classify things.
Okay.
It's quite possible that my dad has some degree of Asperger's. I don't know, because his social engagement and is a little. I'm not sure if he doesn't pick up on social cues. I think we've always just thought he was stubborn, but now I'm starting to think maybe he actually doesn't pick up on social cues, like he really doesn't, in sometimes. And so, but he's also very, he's a genius, that's his, he doesn't talk about it, but we know this. And so we know he's kind of like this kooky genius guy. He used to teach math at UCLA, and he was that professor who didn't show up when they'd have the finals. He'd be at home in the bathtub.
Oh.
And my mom was going crazy, like, get out of here. You have to go to school. He's like, oh, I'm on my way. He's just, in his own orbit. And he's this real math science guy, and he's a stone cold atheist. And
okay, kind of contrasting to your
my
mom.
mother, quite a bit. I mean, it was very interesting, the two of them. They could not have been, I mean, one from the north, one from the south, one a total atheist, one, really, really a faithful woman. And
where do you sort of sit?
What, in all of that?
Do you sit which side of that, like this atheist side or the faith loving God side, or are you
I think I'm a very spiritual person, but I do not subscribe to any one particular into a religion. I have my beliefs and my stuff, but it's definitely different from him.
Yeah.
And it differs a lot from her, because of teachings of hers. And we used to talk about this a lot. We intersect in areas.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely intersected in areas.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from what you said about your dad, it sounds like social anxiety, which I'm very familiar with myself. I'll be that guy that sometimes just sits there in the corner just saying absolutely nothing. Even at my own birthday party the other day, I was the quietest one there. And but I had loads of fun, but what people don't realize is I may be the quietest one in the office, but my mind is constantly sort of ticking over. I'm constantly thinking about things and, people watching and, working out who they are and that sort of stuff. But, it is what it is. I've managed to function pretty well. So I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I used to be the shyest kid in the world. I couldn't even speak to people. And now here. Yeah.
Look what you're doing.
I'm speaking to Karyn Parsons. Hello. Hello.
You're doing just fine. You're doing just fine.
Stark contrast to last year when you said, "Do you know much about slavery?" And I totally freaked out. I started talking about roots, and that's not. I mean, that's the story about slavery. But I totally freaked out, and I was talking about a TV show, and I was talking about all sorts of other things, and I was just like, and I walked away, and I was thinking, "Oh, you idiot!" But then it's all good.
It's all fine. And nothing. And the thing is, it's funny. I was thinking about roots today. I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying, they were talking about the N word. The whole podcast was about the N word. Right. And at some point they said, they were referencing something, and they said, maybe we all need to go back, or certain people, I think they were saying, need to go back and watch Roots again to refresh them about where things came from and what, et cetera. And it was interesting because I've thought many times that I want my kids to see Roots. They haven't seen it, and there's just a lot to learn from it. So when you say that, it was a very valuable show. So there's nothing wrong with saying Roots, especially in terms of slavery. I know we learned a lot about slavery.
I was just like, I when I come up and do these things, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this, and it's gonna be really cool. And then it's like, I didn't say that.
Join the club on that one. Things don't go, smoothly.
So, talking about race and what have you. And when you were growing up, did your mum have that conversation with you? Obviously, being biracial, what you might experience or what you could expect from people.
No,
no, not at all.
No, I mean, I don't think that she really thought about it. I grew up in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it was a very different time.
Because you think of the 70s as sort of sparkly disco balls, bell bottoms, and it was the era of free love and sexual liberation and all of that. So would you say that race wasn't a big of, I mean, obviously was still an issue, but do you think as opposed to the South, it might not have been quite the same?
Well, it was just that it was not, there were issues, there were things going on. It was oppression and injustice and all sorts of things that were happening. However, it was not at the political forefront that it is, today in the United States, for sure. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's a big topic all the time.
Right.
We had just come out of the civil rights era in Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And I think that people felt like a lot of strides had recently been made. Excuse me. And we were very much in, like you said, this kind of, peace and love era. Everyone was just they just got out of the Vietnam War. And I think, excuse me, I grew up in Santa Monica, which was very mixed. I mean, very mixed. My school wasn't all that mixed. It was more Hispanic and white. But when I went to my middle school and high school, it was very mixed. And the attitude was very much like, because the women's liberation movement had just happened and was happening. So it was very like, women can do, girls can do what guys can do, and guys that are expected to be all this don't have to be that. They can like dolls too. And you know what I mean? It was like,
yeah,
all of this was going on, but it was also these Coca-Cola commercials with everybody holding hands. There were people from all over the world holding hands together, and people that looked different. And it was a lot of promotion of those beliefs where I grew up. There was a show called Free to Be You and Me, a special that came on. And it was all about how we are all different and we all love each other for our differences. Yeah. And it was really beautiful, but that was really instilled early in me that that's what's important. And so the race stuff I didn't get it hardcore early. I got things though that are
little microaggressions, things like
I guess
that,
yeah, things you can't avoid growing up. If you're in a society that is predominantly, not just if you are on the lower system, in the caste system, right? So I was called the N-word when I was little, and I didn't know how to respond. And I think I said something like that really haunted me. I said something like, "No, but I'm white." I said something like, "No, I'm not. I'm white," or something. And then I remember leaving and feeling really awful because I was trying to get away from this bad label. Never felt bad about being Black.
Why did you think you responded in that way?
Because I didn't want to be the bad thing. And I knew that the bad thing was somehow attached to my Blackness. And I didn't want to be the bad thing. So I was very quick to hold up my my whiteness and go, "You can't call me that." No. I was like 6. I was little.
Yeah. You don't know. You don't know.
I didn't know anything, and I didn't really know what the word meant. And I just knew that it was bad. And I somehow did know that it had to do with my Blackness. I was called a zebra.
Oh yeah.
But I don't remember that when my mom just said, I came home and I was crying because a boy called me a zebra, and I didn't understand why he would call me an animal.
Obviously that's not what he was getting at, was he? Animal part.
That's what I took it, and then the things that there were things like my hair. I had big hair even then. And I got
beautiful. I have to say, you look beautiful today. I forgot to say that earlier.
Oh, thank you.
When you were talking before about the 70s and what have you, it kind of reminded me of an interview that you gave. I'm not sure when it was years ago. You've given quite a lot of interviews, and you were describing your mother about she was this tall, like Cleopatra Jones type woman. And I remember seeing a picture of you sort of huddled up with her, and she had big old fro, and so that's the image of the 70s that I have, from at least that kind of,
that was her. For me, that was what I grew up with. My dad looked very much like Woody Allen, and my mom looked like Cleopatra Jones, and they were this very odd couple. And she was awesome looking. But like I said, it was such a different time, and the attitudes about it were where I lived, what I received wasn't from a discussion. It wasn't from my mom talking to me or my dad talking to me about it. It was things that I mostly was swimming through it. Right. And it wouldn't be until I was later that I would look back at parts of it and go, oh, I think that affected me, you know. And even in my adult life now, I look at things and I recognize how things affected me that I never knew that were affecting me. I just thought I was just living, but I was judging myself. I was trying to be good enough for people on their terms, often along racial lines. I think a lot of people deal with
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
And that was the most of it.
when I was at school, this issue of colorism came up. In my school, we had a lot of different Asian sort of cultures, as well as the different African cultures, obviously along with whites as well. And I used to get called coconut, or bounty.
Bounty. You know. Oh, for us, it's okay.
I don't know if you have that. I don't know what candy.
It's
like
the
coconut
candy.
Yeah, brown on the outside, white on the inside.
That's interesting. I never heard that one before. Bounty. We have Almond Joy and Mounds, but we have Bounty too, because I know it. But God, I've never heard it used for a person. I've heard coconut.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend's fiance said it, you know, as light-hearted when I was older, but when I was younger, that meant a little, you know, something more to me, because I was always trying to fit in, always trying to, you know, fit in with the different groups and stuff, but I wouldn't get accepted by any of them because of my white friends. And they were like, well, ditch your white friends then, and we might accept you. So I was like, I'd rather have 2 friends, you know, than 20, you know. So that's the kind of things that you face at school, like, you know, like that you know, even within, it's not just to do with the Black community or the white community.
No.
It sort of covers all races. Like you're not enough of something, and that was obviously covered in the Fresh Prince as well, you know, issues of you know, colorism as well. So yeah,
absolutely. I, you know, when my first day, I'll tell you, my first day of junior high school, I was very nervous. There were all these very big kids, and we were all scared of them, and we, oops, did I knock this? Oh, and I was very nervous, and I was going through the halls, and a group of Black girls, some older and a lot my age, but they were all together. They all knew each other, and they saw me and immediately started going, "Oh, you think you're such hot, you know, you think you're so, you know, we're going to kick your ass after school." And then, and they just they were just going on about it. And I was terrified, of course. I hadn't done anything. You think you're too good. You think you're so cute, and all this. And I was like, oh my God. And they told me they were going to beat me up after school. And I'm so scared. And then later I bumped into another large group of Black girls who said, "Oh, what's your name? Who are you?" Pulled me in, thought I was the cutest. "She's so cute. Oh my God, I love your hair. Oh, look at her. She's so sweet. Look how cute she is." That group, both groups judging me on how I looked. This group protected me from getting beat up by this group. But both of them, neither group knew me or anything about me. They made whatever judgment they made. They despised me. They adored me. And that was and I was this little, you know, light-skinned mixy girl with whatever, who looked like I did. And I was kind of, I don't know, I was stamped with something right off the bat.
So how did that sort of change? Did it change you, or did it like sort of long-term affect you at all?
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure that went in deep. That's a message for a kid, right? Wouldn't you think, you know, for a child?
Oh yeah.
That's a message.
Because those early years where you start to form your identity. You get the first bit, which your parents do, and then you go to school and you get to socialize with people, and that's the rest of it, you know. And those are your formative sort of years, those sort of teen years, you know.
Yes, and it tells you who you are to the world, which often you look at as who you must be, or you react to.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm sure it made a very deep effect on me that probably affected me through most of my life.
So when did you get that, moving on to sort of to acting, when did you get that sort of feeling that some call it a bug, you know, when did you have a sort of a moment where you saw something on on TV, or a movie or something? What was the sort of attraction to acting that eventually led you there?
Well, I wanted to do it since I was very little, like 6 years old. And I used to go to the library. Well, there are a few things that happened. At the library, there were books I used to check out that were called plays, and they had 3 plays in them. Mm-hmm. And I would read through while waiting for my mom at work, mm-hmm. read through the different characters, the blocking, the staging, the props, and feel what it was like to be this thing. And that was big to me. And we had something also called a book drive, a bookmobile. And this would come, and so you'd get money to get your books. And I picked a book called Small Plays for You and a Friend. And it was just this little thin little book with a few little sketches in it, mm-hmm. quick skits for 2 children to do with props. A handful of props you could find around the house. And being an only child, I played both parts for my very patient mother, who let me do act out the whole thing for her. And I loved it. And I would watch movies. I loved old movies, old black and white movies, Bette Davis and stuff. But I had to see everything Jodie Foster was in.
Love Jodie Foster.
And she was a child actress.
Still love Jodie Foster.
Yes, she was great. And as a kid, she was a child actress, so she was doing what I wanted, and I just had to see every single thing she was in, even Taxi Driver, when I was way too young to be watching Taxi Driver. But I had to see her, and just like study her. And I've never been anything like her personality-wise, but I really liked her, and she made a big impression on me.
What is your favorite Jodie Foster thing that she's done?
Well, as a kid, I'll tell you, I saw Bugsy Malone 10 times.
I haven't seen that yet.
In the theater 10 times. I mean, you're not alone. A lot of people haven't. Yeah, in the theater. That's not like the way we watch things now. This was going to the
on
theater.
Demand, quick click of the button.
Yeah, this was I saw. I mean, that one I particularly loved because she plays a character. You'll see it now that I've told you. Just even Google a scene with Jodie Foster she plays Tallulah. Priceless.
I love The King and I.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
But she's really wonderful in everything, though, isn't she? I mean,
gonna watch her in the Mauritanians. I
haven't seen it yet.
That's on my watch list on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. We were just watching the trailer again for that last night. I love her, and I love that she's grown into who she has. But I watched her from movies like the little girl who lived down the lane and Freaky Friday. I mean, I watch stuff that most people don't know of hers, old stuff.
Yeah. So but you're normally people would like I do a little bit of acting in high school or something, but you got into a little bit of trouble, didn't you?
I was gonna say I didn't get to do high school. Yes, I did. I didn't do anything though. I'm still mad.
Did you really?
I really didn't do anything. I really didn't.
It's like a confessional.
You know what I did? This is those lessons that kids have to learn. I was the peanut gallery. I was one of the who giggles.
Oh,
I was part of the group. Yeah. There were probably about 4 or 5 of us. And there was one girl in particular who was the real mouth in our drama class, in our theater arts class. Mm-hmm. And the teacher was very uppity guy. And he didn't like it. He couldn't stand us. And she wasn't taking it seriously. I wanted to act. I was very serious about being in that class, but my friends wanted to take it too. So we were all in it. So of course we all sat together. Robert Downey Jr. sat in the front row, and he was a good kid.
Oh, you were in class with him?
Oh, I remember, I can still picture him turning around and looking back at us. He was the good kid. But yeah, what happened is one of my friends, the loudmouth, cheated off of my best friend's paper. She was always on her stuff. She had her stuff together. So this girl cheated off of this girl, and the teacher saw them and kicked us all out of the class. The two of them got fails. We got D's. We were all kicked out of the class and banned from ever participating in any theater arts productions for the length of our time at the school. And it was my first year at the school.
Oh no.
And I wanted to be an actress since I was 6. Now I've hit high school and and we were all in dance ensemble. We were all dancers. We wouldn't even let us audition to be background dancers for Oklahoma when they did the play.
Oh.
We couldn't do anything. And if I had, I didn't have the kind of relationship at that point with my parents where my parents weren't that involved. A lot of people's parents weren't that involved, not like they are these days with their with what's going on in school. Kids just, your parents just kind of let you go and they figure everything's fine. Then in the 70s and 80s, they were just like, you're gone, you do your thing. I don't have to think about you. Because nowadays, if that had happened to my daughter, if she was, wanted to be an actress and something like that happened, she would tell me. I didn't tell my mom, I don't think, what happened. She would tell me, and I would go there in person and say, are you out of your mind? You better put her back into the class. If she needs to make up for something, then she can. But you are not banning her from being in anything, And I wish I had spoken up and told my mom and said, this horrible thing happened. Can you talk to them?
Hey, but life worked out just fine.
It did, and it probably affected me in a good way too. Who knows?
So you were in a few little things before Fresh Prince. I know that wasn't your first TV role, because you did a couple of bit parts before that. Did you audition a lot?
Oh yeah.
Like, what is the audition circuit like? And do you remember seeing lots of familiar sort of faces? Because you would have been still on the West Coast at that point, right?
Oh yeah, auditioning definitely on the West Coast. Yeah, I went to, you've done so much of your homework. I don't know if you already know this, but I went to high school with Holly Robinson.
And Lenny Kravitz.
And Lenny went to junior high school with Lenny. And then we became friends. We weren't friends in junior high. I knew him and I sat and adored him and
I love Holly Robinson.
And drooled over him. Oh, well, Holly.
Yeah, I used to love hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Oh yeah, that's my girl. Well, Holly and I went to high school together, and when I started auditioning, and I didn't know her well in high school, but we knew each other. We knew each other. We're, hey. And when I started auditioning, I saw her at auditions, and she took me immediately under her wing and introduced me to all the other actresses that were, because she had been doing it for a while. And she introduced me to all the other actresses who, we all went up for the same parts and stuff, and told everybody to take care of me, which they did. So they'd see me at things and they were, hey, Karyn, how are you? Have you gone up for this? Have you gone up for that? They would tell me about other auditions. And Holly was she was like my big sis when I started. She was awesome.
Do you remember the first movie you acted in?
Oh goodness, I guess with that smile, you know it.
I'm sorry, I had to. Do you remember?
I do. Death Spa.
I know you look. Apparently for European audiences, it was named Witch Bitch.
Yeah, somebody told me that. Witch. Is that
Did you know that?
European audiences? I heard. Oh my goodness, Witch Bitch.
And you played a character. Apparently, she was called Brooke. I don't remember. I didn't get to the credits.
Yeah, I understand.
But when you were in that moment, were you thinking, I'm in a movie?
I was, yeah. I mean, you don't, it's not like you read the script and think this is brilliant. You're not, you know very well what you're in. But I got what they called Taft-Hartley'd, which means they put you into SAG, into the Actors Guild, this production, since it was my first real production, they paid for me to have my union card. And you need to get a job that will push you in. Everyone waits for that job that'll pay for them to be in the union, and then boom, because you can't just get it on your own.
So that was the job.
And that was the job. So that was really cool. And it was a first real, experience that way. I mean, I was going to the set and I was learning and I was learning. It was fantastic. We had at my death scene, I blew out the mic. I screamed so loud. Oh
my gosh. I remember hearing you an interview mention it, and it wasn't talked about much, but I said, I have to find it. I have to see what it's like. I want to see what Karyn looks like in this. And it was kind of like a precursor to Hilary in a way, in terms of the attitude.
The attitude, yeah. Because the character was a bratty kind of, spoil the little kind of girl character. Yeah, I snap into that kind of character really easily. I don't know why.
Were you like that at all when you were younger, perhaps? Because I know I asked you that at Comic-Con, and you said it depends which of my parents, would tell you. Like my dad would definitely yes. My mum would have said definitely. Well, she didn't mention your mum at the time, but I'm guessing it was something different.
No, I was not I wasn't. But my dad did once say something, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm not like that at all.
Did you ever ask him for $300?
No, we didn't have it like that. But when they split up, and I used to go, I think what he's thinking is when they split up, and I, would have my regular dinners with my dad. He used to have this thing of letting me go buy all the magazines I wanted.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of, so he probably thought of me. He started it. It wasn't my.
Oh, he started
my idea. I probably suggested it, but I probably suggested one or two. But then I think that was his thing, because he didn't see me often, and so he would let me run wild at the magazine stand, and I'd just pick all these magazines, and I'd have a stack of magazines, and he'd pay for them. And
you mentioned we talked about briefly mentioned ways back about your half sibling. What was your relationship like with your half siblings?
I didn't meet them until 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. What sort of
maybe
brought that about?
Oh gosh,
Was that a long story?
I knew they existed. My dad wouldn't, when I was little, he wouldn't tell me about them, because like I said, my dad's a weirdo, and he was being very secretive. And then when I got a little older, when I was a teenager, he started kind of dropping hints about them, like he wanted to talk about it. And of course, now I was a bratty teen who was like, what are you telling me this now for? What am I supposed to do with that information now? I was mad. Why didn't you tell me before? Blah, blah, blah. And so I didn't want any information.
Yeah.
And then, 10 years ago, I got an email out of the blue from Dale, because he was looking for his father. And when he Googled my dad, I came up. My name came up. So he didn't know I existed, but I knew they existed.
And, well, your mom would have said God works in mysterious ways.
And she probably said that too.
Yeah, she probably did, yeah.
But it's good. We're all in contact now, and they're all lovely, and I'm glad we're in each other's lives now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good for you guys. Good for you guys. So there's a little bit of a segue, but I just remembered I didn't ask about it, and I wanted to having the inquiring mind that I do. But so obviously every interview that you do, you get asked the inevitable. You get asked about the Fresh Prince. It's because I'm sure you probably know at this point it's something that many people hold very dear to their hearts, for many different reasons, I guess. But we finally got to see your audition at the reunion.
I know.
And it was just like,
it was weird.
That was Hilary. Did they tell you anything about the character, or give you any notes on how to play her? I mean, you had the script in your hand. Did it have anything on there like this? hold your head this way, or
oh no, not
do
that
anything
kind
like
of
that?
thing.
Like,
It had lines, obviously, and it said, Hilary enters, and it described,
the Save the Ozone Celebrity Bus Tour.
what?
It was the
Yes,
Save the
yes,
Ozone Celebrity Bus Tour.
yes, exactly. But it
Robler with the
described,
knee.
right, to me, it described her as a model type, and I wish I still had that script with the description of her. It described her as a model type, and that was my thing, was like, oh my goodness, I'm not a model type, so how do I do this? And so I had to figure out a way to enter this character.
So
and,
your first scene is like, you walk in, Daddy, I need $300. Will, sorry, Hilary, your cousin's here. Hi, Daddy, I need $300. Like, where's my money? Like, where is it? But,
everybody loves that line to this day, and it's so funny because it's the line I auditioned with. It's the first line I said. It's the first line introduced me to the character.
She loved hats.
So funny, yeah.
She loved hats.
Big on hats.
She did that a lot with her, see with the hair and all of that. But I mean, what? That's obviously something that you do, But what I loved about the reunion, like we've seen the trailers, and you see the characters in their original poses, and then you, as you are now, going into those poses. I thought that was really cool, down to the original Aunt Viv.
Yes.
Which I thought was lovely, and this is probably the most hotly anticipated thing I think I've ever waited for.
Hey, so did you guys, have you seen it there now? Has it come? It has arrived?
Oh yeah, we've had it for a few months now.
Okay.
I want to talk about that in a minute, because I got really emotional during that reunion, for many different reasons, and I laughed a lot and what have you. But what was your experience like on the actual show? I mean, day one, shooting, did you have any kind of realization that this could be something really special that would last so long and be so successful?
Special, yes, because the experience was already special right away.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I clicked with my castmates and I hadn't done many. I had done commercials, I had done another pilot, I had done Death Spa. I hadn't done a lot of jobs yet, but I just was crazy about these people that I was working with. Like right away, we all just were so into each other. Like we just really adored each other right off the bat. And so that alone was special. The people, the crew and everything, just the way there was such a great energy permeating everything. It was a great group of people. And Will is largely responsible for that too. He has this incredibly affable, big, giving, generous personality. He loves to laugh, but he's very professional at the same time.
Yeah.
And that it starts with that person who's, he was the lead in that way. And but I never could have seen it going like it did. I mean, it was, for me, it was really one step at a time. And that's kind of how I am with a lot of things. I'm really one foot in front of the other kind of person. And I think it was remarkable to see the way it was received after a while. I was sometimes surprised that, we haven't cracked the top 10 yet, not surprised, but frustrated, because I knew people were seeing it, people were liking it, but we weren't cracking the top 10 in the TV guide at the supermarket. So when I would read that while waiting for my things to be rung up, and I was like, so we weren't getting to, as large numbers as I was hoping. But in certain households, we were number one. Yeah. And it wouldn't be until, years after the show was over that I started to really see the impact of it. And now I feel like the show is bigger now than it was when it was out.
I mean, it's lived on, hasn't it? In reruns. It was rerun in like over and over in the UK on various different channels. It was on the BBC until I think 2004, way past when it was on, and then it went over to cable channels, and it spent a huge new lease of life through Netflix in the UK as well, which is not now on anymore.
Right, because HBO Max has it here.
But yeah, it finally returned to the BBC where it first started. I mean, it was on a major network, you know, at the time at 6. I remember we didn't get it until January 91.
Oh, okay.
Just a few months after it started. So officially we're in the 30th anniversary year
right now.
Okay. But it's back on the BBC where it belongs, on iPlayer. So, you know, it's what another, you know, legion of fans maybe didn't have Netflix who'll watch it now. And, you know, do people still come up to you in the street, and do they read lines back to you like, Hilary, get a job?
No, I don't get that. I mean, if I go to a Comic-Con maybe, but no, in general, I live in New York, you know, people are, number one, I don't usually think people notice me. I don't think they, you know, I'm out of place, and I don't look exactly like I did then. And so people don't, it's so out of context. I don't think people, if I was walking around with, you know, Alfonso Ribeiro, you know, next to me, then maybe they might, but they'd be so, the thing is, if I'm with Alfonso Ribeiro, all they see is Alfonso. Just like, oh. But so yeah, not so much. Sometimes people play it cool and they don't say anything. I find out later from friends that, oh, we went to this restaurant and they said the girl from the Fresh Prince comes in there all the time. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They've never let on to me once that they had any idea.
Do you have any desire to do Dancing with the Stars?
Nope.
If they asked you and said, okay, we're going to pay you like $500,000, still no. Oh, I see you thinking there.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. When you said 500,000, I was like, wow, that's a big number. But no. When I went in person and watched Alfonso do it, my hands were dripping in sweat. I was so nervous, and not just for him, for everybody who got up to do their thing. I was just like, I was so nervous. I can't imagine if that was me.
Yeah, I couldn't do that either. I can't dance. I tried taking dancing lessons, and I have 2 left feet.
Yeah.
Didn't work. I was meant to be in this production, big work production, and I quit. No. I couldn't do it. I can sing. I can't dance. You know. Okay. But
other way around for me.
The other way around. So, what special memories do you have? Things that really stand out of your time on the show? I know Tatiana mentioned learning at James Avery's feet about the Black culture and what have you. Did you have similar experiences, to her with him?
Oh yeah, James was always teaching in that way. Like, he was sharing, but it was lessons for those of us who didn't know. And he was just so passionate about it, so eager to give what he had. And he was amazing. He also was really great at seeing things in you that you were capable of. And he wanted me to play Macbeth really badly. That was the thing. One thing, he was like, "Oh, I want you to play Macbeth. I want you to do Macbeth and play Lady Macbeth." Oh, he just was like, "Oh wow, you'd be so great." And it was this thing that he had.
Did you see things in people that they didn't see?
Yeah. He did it with Tatiana about something that she hopefully will do one day. And he really, really was encouraging her. It was just, he was great that way. He'd look at you and go, "Oh, you know what?" And then make you see yourself, or see something about yourself that you didn't think of. And that's a beautiful gift when someone can give you that,
Wow. So what sort of we see it in some of the bloopers, what sort of what was the right word, tomfoolery did people get up to on set? Did you get up to anything, play any practical jokes or anything like that?
Not really, I got mad at Alfonso once, and I had driven him to work that day, and I left him there.
You got mad at Will too, didn't you?
So, you
Because,
know, I got mad,
because he knew your lines. And he read them
that
back,
was
and he read them, and he read them back to you. And I was like, how can I've never noticed this before? So
now that you see it, right?
Yeah. And then I went back to the episodes and started watching them again. I was like, how did I not notice that? Like, it's so obvious. Like, you know,
so obvious. And when you're talking to him, doing your lines to him, and he's going back at you, you just want to slug him. Like, what are you doing?
Oh no.
You know, no, he that was Will for you. Had to memorize everybody's lines.
What did Alfonso do?
Oh, it's actually Will that did it. Good old Will. Will, Alfonso and I were playing around and we were sitting, you know, waiting. We were setting up shots and things. And Will, Alf, and I were together. And I don't know. It was so stupid. It was one of the things where we were playing. We were being silly, like siblings with each other. And I went like that and hit him in the face, like this, you know, playing around. And Will, oh man, oh, you gonna let her do that to you? You gonna let her do that to you? You gonna let her slap you across the face? And I saw Alfonso's eyes go, no, maybe I'm not. And I'm like looking at Alf going, don't you dare, you know. And there are other extras. There are extras with us and Will's just egging him on, and finally Alfonso finally slapped me across the face. Yeah, that was my reaction.
Did you?
And I wasn't as mad about the slap as I was mad that he gave in to that and then he did.
Oh my God. Do you know what that sounds like? I know it's, never hit a woman, blah, 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 but it kind of sounds like a bunch of siblings.
Totally.
You know, exactly. just messing around, egging each other on and to do
It's exactly what it was. It's exactly what it was. But I had driven him to work that day. And
you left him there.
So when it was time to go home, even though all this time had gone by,
I
left him.
I remember once in a previous job, quite a few years ago now, I spoke to Joseph Marcel on the phone. I don't know if I told you the story at the Comic-Con, but I was working at a bank and he said he was in, I'm not sure if he said Los Angeles, but he was there for a very special wedding. I'm sure he mentioned he was there with the cast, but I didn't ask him anything. I said it might have been Tatiana's wedding, I don't know. But he'd called to pay his bills. And I noticed his name come up on the screen.
Oh.
And I was like, you don't see that name very often. And, you know, I was just like, I want to just make sure before I make an idiot out of myself, make sure that it's actually him. So, you know, a bit of, you know, checking him out online just to see if everything matched. And I said to him, are you Jeffrey from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? And he said, well, I'm Joseph Marcel, and I played Jeffrey on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And then we talked for about, I don't know, 25 minutes while he was on this overseas call, and the poor man just wanted to pay his bills. But he was so gracious. I was pulling out lines. You know, Uncle Phil says, Jeffrey, grab my tools, and he's like, what, your knife and fork?
Oh, that was a good one.
Oh, you know, so I was just like pulling out lines and going full on fanboy, and he was so gracious.
Yeah,
he was so nice. He was so nice. But that's my funny kind of Fresh Prince story. So going back to the show, things changed after a while. After season 3, I'm not going to talk about drama or anything like that, because that's been well talked about before. We don't need to go over that again. But in terms of like as an actress or an actress, how do you deal with having to play opposite somebody that's supposed to be the same character, but it's a different actress? How does that challenge you, or how did that challenge you to do that?
Oh, you just pick up and you just do it. I mean, it's like going to another job, or, you know,
I loved them both. I loved them both.
They were very different. They're just very different. They're very different people, and they had different and they started writing the character differently. I mean, they definitely wrote the character to Janet's strength when she was Aunt Viv, and then they wrote it to Daphne's when she was Aunt Viv.
I think for me it was in a way you could look at it like it's two different aspects of the same person. So you've got this
Yes.
sort of I wouldn't say hard, because she wasn't hard. She was just more authoritarian, but had a big heart at the same time. But Daphne was more motherly and softer. Yes. You know, yes. just was in a different part of her life. So, but perhaps that could explain the change. But I love them. I absolutely adore them both. For me, there's no like first Aunt. I know I said second Aunt Viv before, but to me, that I love them both equally the same. So it was so cool to see them both. I mean, obviously Daphne was going to be there anyway at the reunion, but I can't tell you how much I love the first time I watched it. Saw it on iPlayer. I've watched it like I don't know about 10 times now, maybe not 10 times, but about 5 or 6 times. But I had a big smile on my face, huge smile on my face, and cried as well too when it got to James Avery, the beautiful tribute to, and very funny tribute to James Avery when they played his best bits. What was it like together? I mean, you have seen each other throughout the years, but
yes, we have, and we do.
What was that moment like? For
well, that was
particular thing,
it was strangely intimate, even though it was being filmed and there were all these cameras and all this stuff. It's still I think because we fall in with each other so easily, we're able to feel like nobody's around. Even when we're all huddled and talking, we can easily we got in the habit of shutting everybody else out, and so I think we fall into that very quickly. So what you watched us with the cameras on us, we were still very in our own thing a lot of the time. It's talking about James is difficult. Him not being there is difficult.
Yeah, no, obviously you get asked about the reunion. That's probably the last, probably one of those ones, maybe, unless you do a 40th reunion when you're a little bit older. Or I think for me that was the definitive reunion, as definitive as you could have done it.
I think so too.
I think anything else would probably pale in comparison to that. It was done to such a high standard,
it was done. I think they did a great job.
I think it was the perfect kind of thing, and just to see a little baby Nikki, grown up. Because I'd seen him at the Comic-Con last year sitting next to you, and I was like, oh, is that him? Like, because obviously last time I saw Ross was in Independence Day in 1996.
Right.
When he played Will's son in that film. But yeah, I remember saying to you, look, I watched this over and over again. I've watched it so many times. You're like, really? Like do you get it now? Like, why people do that? Like,
watch the show over and over?
Like the reruns over and over again?
I guess I can understand, because I have things that I love and I get pleasure from. I think that's it. It's just that it gives people joy. And it's a great thing.
So you tried after the show. You did a couple of things. You were in the Job. That was like a couple of seasons, I believe. Then you moved to New York. Was where you met your husband, I believe, at a restaurant opening. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. That's correct.
So what was that moment? Was it like, or was it, the love, like, didn't take time? Did you kind of think, oh, okay, I might kind of like to date this guy, or did he ask you out? Like, how did it,
It was kind of like, angels and bells a little bit. Yeah.
Oh.
It was a little like, oh yeah. I mean, I really was very interested in seeing him again right away.
So you quickly had your daughter, Lana, who now is what, 17 or 18?
She'll be 18 in 2 weeks.
Wow, happy birthday, Lana. Who looks like a mini Karyn, I have to say. She looks a lot like you. Now that she's gotten older, she looks a bit more like you. And I see your son, Nico, born in 2007. I was interested by something a previous interviewer said to you. It was a few years ago now, Vlad TV or something like that.
Yeah.
He said, your husband's white, you're half white, your children are 75% white and 25% black. Mm-hmm. And do you teach your kids to be biracial? And you were like, your reaction was like, hold up, what's he trying to say here? And then I want to quote something from a book. You're probably going to recognize this. You know, it was not so subtle kind of segue into the next section, but the quote goes, son, there are going to be folks that take to judging you for you done walked in the room. Sorry, if you excuse my accent, obviously doesn't sound convincing enough. But just because they say you is something, that doesn't mean you is. You decide what you is. That's your decision, ain't nobody else's. You can't make nobody change their minds about you, neither. So don't go wasting your time with none of that. You just be what you know is right. Don't talk about it, be it. And that kind of stirred me. It was just like, you know, people have their own idea of what you should be or what you need to be, or what you have to be, but it's you, what's here on the inside. So you don't need to prove yourself to anybody. You just be yourself, just be it, which is what the Poppy said in the book. I think it's Poppy. I forgot that wrong.
It's Poppy.
Yeah.
It's Poppy.
Simple but so powerful. I mean, is that something that you told your children, or you you can't teach them to be 25% black? That's probably the most ridiculous thing that's probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You can't teach them to be 75% white either. How do you teach them to be 100% black or 100% white anyway? You know, what does that even mean? So, but what did you talk to how did you talk to your children about race? How have you kind of broached that subject with them?
I think what it is, I mean, first and foremost is trying to teach them to be true to themselves, and in a world that's pushing and pulling you and asking you to declare yourself this or this instead of this, or all of these things. I think what's most important is that you are just true to yourself. You're just true, whatever that is. And that is whatever it is. It's not you or you or you or you or you. It's me and my truth. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the most important thing. And that's what we try to teach our children.
So your mother grew up in the Jim Crow South. And me, for my sins, for my lack of knowledge, I thought it was a person, and it's not. It's Jim Crow. It's a set of laws, statewide and local laws that enforced racial segregations in pretty much every area of life. So she must have seen things or experienced things, such horrible things. But, you know, like having to use different water fountains, different bathrooms, schools, churches. I mean, and I found this quote. I don't know if you've probably heard of this guy, William Edward Burkhart Du Bois. I don't know if you've heard of that guy.
It's actually Du Bois.
Du Bois, sorry. I thought Du Bois.
It's okay. I said Du Bois for most of my life. I said Du Bois.
He said it's a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, the sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others. One never feels his two-ness, an American N-word, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. Like, and I look at that and the kind of life that your mum must have had to live, that kind of duality, like this being so afraid of being who you are, but having to also act in a certain way that is appeasing to people,
Yes.
especially during that time in the Jim Crow South. But your mum surprisingly said she had a happy childhood.
Correct.
How can that be?
Right. Well, that was the question, and what led me to.
That's the question that you asked. That what led you, to Sweet Blackberry.
It led me to, or to write How High the Moon. That's what led me to write How High the Moon, because I didn't understand that, and I wanted to know more, and I wanted her to tell me more about her upbringing. And so eventually, I sat down and I started writing How High the Moon, a book that put where I placed myself as an 11-year-old kind of in my mother's shoes, and in her background, with her background and her, where she grew up and everything. And
I have that book right
there. It is.
I finished it yesterday.
Oh, great.
I have to tell you, I've read, I mean, this is going to be on my Amazon review, because I wanted to wait until the end till I've read every single word before I leave a review. It's going to be 5 stars. I have to tell you that.
Thank you.
I give it because it deserves it. If it, I've given 3-star reviews before. My opinion, everyone's subjective opinion, but I've read maybe 6 or 7 books in my whole lifetime. Adult lifetime, I should say. They used to make us read books when we were little. So we could learn how to read, but I've never been a big reader as an adult, and literally I've only read 6 or 7 books, and I kind of thought, okay, I need to read this book. I have to read this because I wanted to understand more about you and what you do and why you do it. And I have to say, I was captivated. It's literally from the first page, and it's written in such a unique way. You'll see from the perspective of this girl, but you also hear from the perspective of the cousins Henry and Myrna as well, which I thought was really kind of special. You can see their different kind of, personalities sort of, intersecting with each other. And this little, I say little, she's 11 years old, free-spirited, let's say, kind of girl who's longing for this life with her mother, who she hasn't seen for such a long time because she's working as this jazz singer, and she's working in a shipyard too, which I thought was kind of funny. I like some I got some quotes from it, like I was my own boss and did things my way, just like my mama. I love things like that. And she's obviously wondering of this freedom that they have in Boston, that they had in the northern states. Was that kind of told from is that what you kind of gleaned from your mother in the stories that she told you?
That was, I mean, at the time that I was writing it, yes, I got stories from her. I got incidents from her, just recollections. And then I ran it all by her, and so she was reading my drafts and helping me in that way, saying, oh, this sounds so true. You took me right to this place, and I would ask her about lots of specifics so I could really, get there. And I would always call her or text her about specifics, like, I'm thinking about this. Does this make sense? Or would you have thought this then? And just to make sure, like, her impression of Boston, because her mother, when she was little, her mother lived in Boston. She lived with her grandparents, and her mother wasn't a jazz singer, but she was working as a nurse, and she was in Boston. And so she was away from her. But I would, I would run things by her, like about what her impression was, to make sure they aligned with Ella's in the book.
What sort of things did your mum experience? Was it pretty much what's in the book?
There's a lot of fiction in the book.
So there was a scene where I say scene. It's not a movie.
I say that too.
It could be.
I say scene.
But when they walk past this family that have been killed, and then it just kind of goes on like it's like a normal part of life. Do you know?
Well, that was not my mother's experience, but I wanted to have. I thought it was important for young readers to understand lynching, and the reality of it, and how it could be, how these things how they could come about, how a whole family this could happen to an entire family, and how it could be left there, and the atrocity of it. I found when working with Sweet Blackberry, you know, children, and now having my own children, that kids are ready for a lot more than we give them credit for. And I think it's really wonderful to put things in when you have them in books, and they're in classroom situations where they can discuss these things with people and understand them and process them.
Mhm.
I think that's important. You know, the first time I saw anything about a lynching, I came across it in a book in my house. There was a photograph. I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. You know, it
Wow.
just terrified me. And my mother didn't mean to, you know, she wasn't withholding anything from me, but
How
you
do
know,
you
I think
have
it's,
that conversation with the child? This is what used to happen to us.
yeah, that this is something that's real, that
Yeah.
this was a real thing. And so I wanted, you know, I did want to bring that to, and I'm glad, because I've had discussions with classrooms about the book before,
Mm.
and that's come up. And I've talked to teachers a lot about it, educators a lot about it, and everybody seems to be really pleased that it's there, so that they can talk about, so that it's there now. You guys can talk about it. We can talk about this.
So it's a lot of similarities, I guess. Some. She was called a zebra too.
Yeah.
You know, so some your experience too, and apparently she looked like a white girl dancing, and you know things like
Yeah.
things like that. And then just simple things like going to the store. I was about to lay down a major spoiler then. No, I won't say that. Okay, move on. Like
Oh.
going to the store and meeting, say, the seeing the white customers, you know, say, you know, putting your head down, thank you, ma'am, you know, and all this sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that kind of duality of having to be that and then being yourself at home, you know. I thought it was really, really interesting. And this isn't technically a spoiler, but there's a song in there. I was Googling, reading and Googling, reading and Googling all the time through reading the books. I wanted to really, you know, learn, because my knowledge is of that sort of thing is quite poor, and it is quite important. Ella was sad about something, I won't say what, and Myrna sung her this song, Unclouded Day.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
I Googled it, and I was wondering, did you deliberately name Myrna after Myrna Summers, who quite famously sung that song? No, okay. I did wonder. I was just like, I turned it on to YouTube. I had this like, wow, just like most powerful kind of like gospel voice and beautiful. And I was wondering, is that a
I'd like to say it's completely coincidental, and I think it was, because I think she had the name before that came into the book. Yeah.
I mean, how far? I mean, this is a minefield, but explain it how succinctly as you can. How far do you think attitudes have come with regards to race and attitudes towards race, you know, in terms of just thinking now of all the killings of the young and older Black men and women, which some have coined as modern day lynchings? I mean, how far, if at all, do you think any progress has been made?
Oh, definitely. Like, definitely progress has been made, but we've got so much work to do, and there's so many people that won't acknowledge that there's a problem. And if you're not going to acknowledge that, then we can't get to taking care of it, or recognizing it when it morphs and changes shape. Because I think that's a lot of what's happened. A lot of racism hasn't gone away; it's morphed and changed. The way it manifests and the way it's changed shape. Whether it's the prison system and incarceration, or it's the killing of so many young Black men. There are all of these, there's so many places where, there's slavery, then there's Jim Crow, then et cetera. There are so many things that are just ways of holding on to that thing.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you as well, the reason that you set the book at the place as Alcaloo in South Carolina, was that
Yes.
because you wanted to briefly mention the character of George, the real character of George Stinney, was that?
Yes. Yes. My mother grew up in Wando, a place called Wando, which is outside of Charleston. But Alkaloo is where George grew up. And so I wanted to keep true to as much to his background and his story as he was a real person. I thought that was correct to do that. And so that's why it was Alkaloo where this took place.
Just the I remember, I can't remember the name of the film, but it was based on George Stinney's story. He was obviously wrongly convicted of murdering these two white girls. It was like, this slight framed boy who couldn't have possibly have carried the body all that way. It was just bizarre, and convicted in this incredibly unfair trial, which was obviously indicative of what would happen to young black men at the time. And it was so sad. Even the film played it so real, with this little boy crying,
I've seen the clips of it.
It was just awful.
Awful.
But what I really appreciated about the book was it felt, everything in it, even though it was fiction mainly, it felt so real, and it felt like it came from a real place. Felt really authentic, and it kind of, it stirred me in a way to find out a little bit more about what went on in my country, because especially in Liverpool. Where you didn't see, I don't know if you would ever get the chance to come back, but there's a really good slavery museum here, which I must go to. But this country played a huge part. I mean, when I found out that when slavery ended, the government, this is how sick it is, and the government paid the slave owners reparations, and they made the slaves work for free for 2 years. This is my government, and Liverpool played a huge part in transporting slaves to other countries. And then we had colonies, and we sing songs like Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory. And we had this great, amazing British Empire. And I'm not sure if people realize, they look at the glorious stuff, the power, the prestige, and how did we get here? How did we get to that point? You don't just, even my own people, I come from India, my family come from India. They didn't just, British didn't just walk in and say, oh, can we, take over? Can we treat your people like slaves? You don't just walk in.
Right, exactly.
It's crazy. It's encouraged me to find out, to find out a bit more. So I really appreciate that, and I hope it has that effect on a lot of people.
Me too.
Because these kind of stories need to be told. We need to know about the ugly stuff, the horrible stuff, to move forward. And I did. I never normally do this, and I won't tell you how much, but I had to make a donation.
Oh, thank you.
I had to do it. I was moved. It was my first, I had recently got a job and it was my first wage, and I was trying to think of something that I positively I could do, as small as it is. I hope it encourages other people to make help and support you in that. I just felt moved to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
But yeah, it made. I think I laughed, and I was in tears. I kind of giggled, throughout the book. So I really hope. I mean, you've got a filmmaker husband, right?
Yeah.
And you got this amazing thing called Sweet Blackberry. Quickly, tell us about Sweet Blackberry. Why you started that? Was the kind of impetus?
Yes, I guess I should quickly get to that. My mother was, like I said, was a librarian, and as an adult, she headed the Black Resource Center at her library, and she would tell me stories that she'd call me, we'd be talking, and she'd say, oh, I came across this story. And she told me, in particular, she told me the story of Henry Box Brown, who was an enslaved man who mailed himself literally to his freedom, had a box built, climbed inside, had someone nail it, shut, put postage on it, and send it from where he was enslaved in Virginia across state lines to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 27-hour journey.
Wasn't a smooth journey either, was it?
It was not a smooth journey. So and it wasn't, I mean, not just for the sake of my Sweet Blackberry story, it really wasn't. It was 27 hours and he went by wagon, boat, train, all these ways to finally arrive, and he made it across. He survived, and when they pulled him out of the box, he was now a free man because he was across state lines where there was no slavery. And I was so impressed with that story. That would be the impetus for the entire Sweet Blackberry organization, because I wanted to bring more stories like this that were so inspiring that we don't hear about at all. I wanted to bring those to children so they could grow up knowing, have the little seeds planted about these incredible achievements.
Because you also had the guy who invented the three-way traffic light system.
Traffic signal, yes, the traffic signal. Garrett Morgan.
First African-American ballerina.
First prima ballerina, Janet Collins.
Janet Collins, yeah. And then you had Bessie Coleman.
Yes, the first Black female aviator. And she received her pilot's license before Amelia Earhart did.
Yeah.
And we always hear about Amelia Earhart, but Bessie, received hers earlier, and she had to go to France to get it. And she was the first Black person to get an international pilot's license.
Since we've talked for quite a while now, I won't make you read the whole book, but what about the story or about Bessie inspired you, apart from obviously what you've said already?
Yeah, well, Bessie, I mean, I think she's just remarkable. We knew so little about flight at all at that time, obviously. And for her to have to take a boat to to get a sponsorship, because no one in America would teach a Black Cherokee, she was Cherokee as well, woman, how to fly in the States. And so she had to go somewhere else. Her friend suggested France, and she got sponsorship and had to take a boat. She had to learn about the culture and about learn the language a little bit and go all the way there for months away from her family and her friends and learn this new, very mysterious flight thing, right? And she came back a hero, and she was an aviator, she was a pilot. And I just think that for this person to have such gumption, to have such nerve, to have such spirit at a time like that. She was so ahead of her time that people were laughing and going, "You can't do that, and we won't teach you." And to instead of say, "Okay, of course I can't," she said, "No, I can't. I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out," and push through. And that's something for all of us to learn from. I really want children to learn about challenges and seeing that incredible obstacles are actually opportunities for greatness. But I think we all can learn from people like Bessie and look to them and remember what we're capable of.
If your little girl will look at that and think, I can do that,
Yes.
Okay, maybe your little boys too, maybe.
Everybody.
Anybody. But yeah, I mean, that's really, really great. And I forgot something that I didn't say about the Fresh Prince, so I'm not going to talk about it for long, but that also encourages people, I think. Tatiana talked about Black excellence, and she talked more about the love that you had for each other. But I think the encouraging thing for people is even though it was a sitcom, that showed what is possible. And it's not just white people. It's not just a certain type of person that can do that.
Right.
And you can achieve if you work hard.
Yes.
And you have parents that love and support you, but also are tough on you, but encourage you at the same time. I think that's what that show did. And
I think you're right.
And these books can do. How can people support you?
You can. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Sweet Blackberry is a nonprofit organization. So we rely on donations and support from the public. Mm-hmm. You can go to sweetblackberry.org and support us there. Also learn about our Patreon page. We now have a Patreon page where with membership, you can receive all sorts of little bonuses
and
gifts and things.
So there'll be links in the description. So sweetblackberry.org/donations. You can donate anything from, I think, about $10, whatever you want to do. Anything will help, I'm sure. And
yes.
The Patreon is www.patreon.com/sweetblackberry, and you get some pretty sweet deals here. And it's not that much, so about £4 or $5 a month, you get behind the scenes content, vote on elements of the unfinished developing projects. You get a swag bag after a year full of really cool things like a t-shirt, posters, you name the Blackberry website, and then you go to the £8, $10 one where you get all of that, plus early access screenings to films, where you get to, maybe there's an occasional surprise guest, first drafts of new stories, monthly live discussions, and the mega gold, platinum, whatever you want to call it, package, $38.50 or $50. After 2 years, you get a school visit. I'm presuming that's US only. Autographed Sweet Blackberry collection, which is 4 DVDs, 3 books, and the amazing How High the Moon novel, which is aimed for teens, but a 43-year-old guy got so much out of it. I think it's for anybody. You get a Zoom hangout with Karyn, or a shout out after 3 months. How amazing is that? I'm gonna put the links in the description. You got guys get involved, whoever watches this. Now, finally, I just want to ask you, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to do? Do you know, because you have clearly been inspired by the people that you've worked with, acted with, these books. What do you want your legacy to be for your children, for anyone, you know, out there?
Oh, I don't know. That I was kind. I don't know. It's a hard one. Yeah. You know, there's so much I want to do, but it's less about, it's so funny because it's like, I feel like it's like, there's my mom. I feel like it's not about me, you know, that I was kind, and maybe that I encouraged others to be kind.
Yeah, and I think you can do that through the work that you do, and keep it going. It's great stuff. I tell you what, I'm pointing towards it. I've read that book. I know it's a kid's book, but I loved it. You can buy that from Amazon, anywhere. I'll put a link in the description.
Thank you.
That I've got my friend on too. She's going to read that. She's put that on a reading list, so she's going to read that. Giving it 5 stars on Amazon.
Thank you.
Congrats also on the Kickstarter campaign for Sweet Thing.
Thank you.
When can we expect to see that?
It's going to be, I know it's going to be going to France, to a festival in France this summer. It's also going to be screening in France, and it's going to be screening in New York in June or July. It's going to be screening in New York as well at the IFC Theater in New York. So that's very exciting. So it's in the next couple months.
And hopefully it'll come to the UK too. And as I said, I mentioned it again. Hopefully there'll be a special project of How High the Moon at some point down the road too.
I hope so. Yeah, you just put it out there.
It's done so well. I mean, your kids could be in it. I mean, you've acted together in a film together. That must have been interesting.
That was great. Yeah.
But yeah, I can't wait to see that. And I appreciate this so much. Like,
thank you. It's been very nice. Thank you.
You were my whole teenage years. Literally my whole teenage years, and I love that show. It was like, if I can leave you with anything, is that in the midst of an unhappy childhood, it was a very happy family for me to be a part of, and it felt like, and I think for people watching, we felt like we were a part of it. you know, the siblings, you know, the family, and it kind of got me through a few sad times when I was younger. So I wanted to really thank you guys for that. It's had many effects, you know, different kind of meanings to different people. So
well, thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me that.
I adore the show, and I'll watch it over and over again, which may surprise you, but that quality lasts, you know.
Thank you.
And there you go. So thank you, and you have a good evening.
This was beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.